So in this video, we're going to be talking about the two distinctive roles that economists play in an economy. So the first role we'll talk about is when economists act very much like scientists. If you think about a scientist in any field, whether be it physics or biology, economists approach economics in a very similar way as a physicist or a biologist would. They would devise theories, okay, theories that make sense. They collect data. And finally, analyze these data to verify or refute their theories. In the last chapter, we talked about one of the principles that said that prices rise when the government prints too much money. And you could imagine that we could go back, as economists, we could go back to the data and find out if money growth is high, does that lead to prices being high? We always have data on this, right? If our theories tell us that this should happen, we can always collect data and we can then analyze these data to verify whether this is really happening in the long run. Okay, so that's kind of this idea behind how how economists act as scientists, or in the essence of science, they employ what is known as the scientific method. Okay, so this is really the scientific method where you are devising a theory, collecting data, and analyzing these data to verify or refute the theories. Okay, so this is not all. Economists also act as policy advisors, where once they've understood the world around them, they would try to improve the world. I should say try to improve the world around them. Okay, so the idea here is if we're seeing that so many people are becoming unemployed, they're being laid off from their jobs during the pandemic, then as policy advisors, one policy advice would be that we need fiscal stimulus and help those in need and maybe give them unemployment benefits. We'll talk more about what these are, but give them unemployment benefits so that they can tide through this terrible time, okay, financially terrible time. So this would help them pay their bills and look for new jobs. Okay, so as policy advisors, we're trying to improve the world around us as economists. So these are really the two roles that economists play. Now, when we are thinking about the scientific method, or economists acting like scientists, they typically employ what we call economic models to understand the world around them. Okay, so economic models really give us a simplified version of a very complex reality that exists in the world. So any type of model, whether it's a roadmap that you're using, or when you want to get from point A to point B, you're using Google Maps or Apple Maps on your phone, it really shows you that you can use maybe a flat surface or a two-dimensional figure to read and to get from point A to point B, even though we know that the Earth is not flat. Okay, so it's still a model. It still is a simplified version of a complex reality, but is very, very useful. In similar ways, economists would act like scientists and employ economic models. Okay, so these economic models could be things like diagrams or equations. Okay, and these would omit many details about the world and allow us to see what's truly important. Typically, to understand a diagram or an equation, we would, or to build an economic model, we would make use of a lot of assumptions. Right? So these assumptions really just simplify a very complex reality. So we're going to be omitting a lot of details, but the model is going to be built with assumptions. Okay? And so the idea here is that we're using all of these things to simplify the complex world around us. But economists try to use these economic models to understand economic concepts and economic issues.